Welcome to Robert W. Shekels Incorporated. This is your new employee training. In front of you is your employee information packet. In this packet, there is detailed information about company policy, benefits, and safety information. On page 1, the first paragraph discusses the insurance benefits available to employees after 3 months of employment. If you are interested in insurance, you will receive a notice in your check prior to your entry date, and you may come into the office to discuss plans in detail. The second benefit offered to employees is the 401k plan that is after 6 months of continuous employment. We also contribute fringe benefits from wage scale projects into the 401k benefit. The third item is about absence from work. As an employee, you are responsible for notifying the office if you are going to be absent. If you know in advance that you're going to be absent for an appointment, please let the office know that. And if you're ill, please call the office prior to 5:30 in the morning. On the second page, there's more information that you may read at your leisure. Mandatory labor law posters are posted in the foreman's room, which is across from the men's bathroom in the shop. These posters are available for review by all employees during normal business hours. On your first day of work, you will be issued a set of time keys. You will be responsible for clocking in at the beginning of the day, in and out for lunch, and out at the end of the day. If you make a mistake, please let your foreman know so that he can make a notation of it for payroll. If you lose your time keys, they will be replaced at a cost of $50. Your final check will be held until your time keys are turned in. Employees will receive written citations for violations of the company safety policy. On the first offense, it is a written warning. On a repeat offense, the second time it's loss of 1 hour of pay. On a repeat offense, on the third time, a loss of 2 hours pay. And if the employee continues to have repeated violations for the second offense, they will be brought into the office for a meeting and will either be issued a day off without pay or they may be dismissed. Violations will be issued from inspections by your project manager, your on-site foreman, and third-party safety consultants. If an employee suffers a work-related injury on the job, it must be reported to his on-site foreman immediately. If an employee wishes to seek treatment, they will be advised of the closest facility and a location to receive drug and alcohol testing. A first report of injury will be completed and signed by the foreman and the injured worker on the day of injury. That will occur whether or not treatment is required or requested. R.W. Shekels will not be held responsible for treatment of injuries not reported to your foreman on the day of injury and for employees who seek treatment without prior authorization. Personal protective equipment issued by R.W. Shekels to the employees will be replaced at no cost for damages due to normal use. Employees will simply present the damaged item to the office to get a replacement. Lost or misused items will be replaced at the employee's cost. Why safety? Accidents do happen, but when employees follow the safety rules, most accidents can be prevented. Accident prevention is everyone's job. Be on the alert for unsafe conditions that may cause an accident and either correct them yourself or report them to your supervisor. Employees must wear work boots and work clothes that are suitable for the job. They must wear long pants and shirts at all times. No shorts, no sneakers. Employees must learn to lift correctly. They must keep their knees bent and their backs straight. For heavy loads, ask for help. Employees are not allowed to ride on or get underneath of loads that are being carried by the forklift. Employees must never stay on the scaffolding when the scaffolding is being moved. When an employee uses the man cage on the front of the forklift, he or she must utilize the safety harness fall arrest system. Only trained and authorized employees are allowed to operate forklifts. Trained forklift operators must carry their cards with them at all times. All employees need to keep alert around all moving equipment on the job site. Be sure you know what is behind your vehicle before backing up. Get out and look if necessary. All electrical devices, power tools, etc. must be properly grounded. Do not break off a prong to force a fit. Do not use a cord or tool with a damaged cord. Place that item out of service. Make sure all ladders are in good condition, firmly placed and secured. Have both hands free of tools or materials, and always face the ladder when going up and down. The following video will show the proper 3-point contact when accessing a ladder or scaffolding. Employees are never allowed to climb the scaffolding members. They must access a scaffold by ladder or by a ladder buck. All scaffolding be erected under the supervision of a competent person. Dismantling will occur in the same way. All tubular scaffolding must have cross braces, guardrails, mid-rails, and toe boards on all working levels. All working levels must be fully planked. The ends of the scaffolding must have guards to keep employees from falling off the end. In this illustration, we used a pallet to achieve this. On the front of the scaffolding where the bricklayer's level is, all ends must be guarded with proper end rails, as seen here. Where uplift can occur, toggle pins must be installed on all scaffolding members. Scaffolding must be put on a proper base with mud sills and screw jacks. On a concrete floor, you do not need wood, but on dirt, wood must be placed underneath of the base plates, and the base plates must be secured by screwing or nailing into the wood. Make sure to keep tools and materials away from the edges of scaffolding and floor openings. Promptly replace all guardrails and mid-rails after materials are placed on the scaffolding. If at any time an employee has a question about scaffolding safety, please do not hesitate to ask your foreman on site. R.W. Shekels also utilizes hydromobile scaffolding, which is a fully motorized scaffolding system. When hydromobile scaffolding is raised and or lowered, all employees must stop working, hold on to a stable piece of the equipment, and continue to hold on until the scaffolding has come to a complete stop. If you arrive on a job site with hydromobile scaffolding and you have never used the system, please seek further instruction from your on-site foreman. Located in every foreman's company truck is a first aid kit, a fire extinguisher, and a bound red binder containing material safety data sheets, which are now known as safety data sheets. These items are always available to employees, and if someone finds that one is missing and or not operable, they need to notify their foreman immediately. According to Maryland law, employees are not allowed to smoke inside company vehicles or inside of any building that is completed or under construction. You are still permitted to smoke outside of a building. Listening to radios and or iPods is prohibited on all job sites. Possession of, use of, or being under the influence of alcohol or illegal drugs while on the job site, on company property, or in company vehicles is prohibited and is cause for disciplinary action up to and including dismissal. In your packet in front of you is our full drug and alcohol policy for your review. R.W. Shekels has weekly, mandatory toolbox safety meetings. All employees will be required to sign an attendance sheet. All trash from employee lunches is to be placed in a proper trash container, not on the floor of the truck and not on the ground at the job site. Housekeeping is very important. Construction trash, brick bands, broken block, empty mortar bags should not be allowed to accumulate on the scaffolding or under the scaffolding or at the mixing station. These items need to be cleaned up daily as well and placed in the on-site dumpster. Personal protective equipment must be worn by all employees as the task requires. Hard hats and safety glasses must be worn at all times, no exceptions. Disposable dust masks are available for all employees at every job site. RW Shekels follows Appendix D of OSHA's requirement for respiratory protection. Disposable dust masks are provided for all employees and are not required to be worn. We highly encourage employees to wear dust masks when they are mixing mortar and sawing material. The following video will show the proper technique for fitting a respirator. Hazard communication. Maryland has laws requiring employers to inform employees of any hazardous or toxic substance in their workplace, commonly referred to as the right to know laws. This law requires RW Shekels to inventory and list all hazardous and toxic substances in the workplace on the chemical information list. This list gives the common name, chemical name, where the hazard is found, the type of hazard it is, and the date it was added to the list. All hazardous and toxic substance must have safety data sheets. All containers must be properly labeled, and RW Shekels must train all employees on the law, on their rights, and on how to get information about hazardous substances, on personal protective equipment uses, and on safe handling of materials. Our Right to Know program consists of a chemical information list, safety data sheets, labels, and training. As an employee, you have the right to see a chemical information list and the safety data sheets within 1 day of request. This is never a problem because those are always in your foreman's truck. You have the right to be provided with 1 copy of the chemical information list and or the safety data sheets within 5 days of the request. You have the right to be trained on the hazards of the chemicals in your workplace, to know the appropriate personal protective equipment, and the methods used to protect you from the hazard, as well as the emergency procedures. As an employee, you have the responsibility to know where the chemical information list and safety data sheets are. You need to learn to read and understand the labels and the safety data sheets. You need to learn to identify hazards before you start a job. Never be afraid to ask questions. Keep your work area clean. Use the provided personal protective equipment. Don't smoke, eat, or drink around hazardous substances. Learn emergency procedures. And follow RW Shekels procedures for disposal and cleanup. You need to practice safe work habits at all times. Hazardous materials that you may work with on the job site could accidentally come in contact with parts of your body, such as your skin, eyes, or lungs. We want you to be aware of the danger so you can protect against it. Inhalation is the most common way for a hazardous material to enter your body. The material may be in the form of a dust, gas, mist, or vapor. Ingestion of a hazardous material is the next most common method. If you work with your hands and do not wash them before touching your mouth, put a cigarette in your mouth, or eating and drinking, you have a good possibility of transferring the hazardous material into your body. Flammable and combustible materials. Most flammable and combustible materials on a construction site are liquids such as gasoline. The major hazard is fire and explosion. There are many solid materials that you work with that may have components that are flammable, such as sealants or glues. These solid materials must be treated in a similar manner to the liquid and flammable combustible materials. Always keep these materials away from a source of ignition, such as welding, grinding, or smoking, that could cause a fire or explosion. Spills of flammable materials should be cleaned up properly. Flammable vapors can be particularly harmful. These vapors are invisible and are usually heavier than air and will accumulate close to the ground or the floor and can travel some distance from the source. Corrosives. Corrosives are chemicals that cause visible destruction to living tissue at the site of contact. The most common on a construction site would be muric acid. Personal protective equipment to protect the eyes and exposed skin from splashing or splattering are required around corrosive substances. Irritants, dust, and fumes. These are substances that are not corrosive and cause a reversible inflammatory effect on living tissue, swollen, red, itchy skin. Irritants generally bother the skin, eyes, and lungs. Personal protective equipment to protect the eyes and exposed skin from splashing or splattering are required when using or handling an irritant. Dust and fumes generated from any number of activities, such as concrete sawing, grinding, mixing. The site of action of dust, mist, and vapors is primarily in the lungs. Protection can be accomplished with proper respiratory protection equipment and/or adequate ventilation. Systemic poisons. These are materials that can cause damage to an organ system in your body, such as your liver, your heart, or your kidneys. These materials can enter your body in any of three ways: inhalation, absorption, or ingestion. For example, years of breathing fine silica sand dust can cause silicosis, a disease of the lungs. All systemic poisons have something in common. No matter how they enter your body, they can cause permanent, adverse effects upon your organs and make you feel before you feel sick. Safety data sheets tell you the exact classification of any chemical that you are using. Review the use of the safety data sheets and chemical information lists in emergency procedures. The Hazard Communication Standard requires chemical manufacturers, distributors, or importers to provide safety data sheets, formerly known as material safety data sheets, to communicate the hazards of hazardous chemical products. Section 1 is the identification. It identifies the product, the manufacturer, and gives emergency phone numbers. Section 2 identifies the hazard and tells the required labeling. Section 3 tells the composition and gives information on the ingredients in the hazard. Section 4 is the most important section. It's the first aid measures. It gives information on overexposure and required treatments. Section 5 is firefighting measures in the event of an explosion or fire. Section 6, accidental release measures, shows the proper methods for cleanup. Section 7 discusses handling and storage for hazardous chemicals. Section 8 reviews the personal protective equipment required when dealing with the hazards. Section 9 lists physical and chemical properties. Section 10 discusses the chemical stability and possibility of hazardous reactions. Section 11 discusses the toxicology information. Sections 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 give other information about the hazards. As of June 1, 2015, the HazCom standard will require pictograms on labels to alert users of the chemical hazards to which they may be exposed. Each pictogram consists of a symbol on a white background framed with a red border and represents a distinct hazard. The pictogram on the label is determined by the chemical hazard classification. In your packet is a further description of all pictograms and the hazards that they represent. As of June 1, 2015, all labels will be required to have pictograms, a signal word, hazard and precautionary statements, the product identifier, and the supplier identification. A sample revised HCS label identifying the requiring labeling elements is shown and is also included in your packet. This concludes your safety orientation training for R.W. Shekels. At this time, an employee representative will meet with you to review any questions you may have about your training.